Now that winter has arrived and it's about 15 degrees Fahrenheit out here in northern New Jersey, my F-150 Lightning is totally useless. It won't even go 50 miles on a full charge. Wait a minute, that's not correct. And I forgot for a second. I'm not one of those YouTubers that will say anything to get clicks, make outrageous claims, and even spread FUD just so they could make a couple bucks. What we do here at State of Charge is I try my best to offer honest content that helps people learn about electric vehicles. Now, I've been driving electric vehicles for 13 years now. I've gone through 13 winters here on the Northeast, driving my EVs through New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. And you know what? I've never been stranded. I've never needed to be towed. I've never run out of charge on the side of the highway and have a snow plow push me into a tree like some of the things you hear out there. There's actually a lot you can do to better prepare yourself for winter driving. Now, make no mistake, electric vehicles, all electric vehicles, including the Lightning, don't go quite as far when it's cold as they do when it's warm. But that doesn't mean that you can't live perfectly fine with it. You have to understand how range works. You have to understand the effects of cold weather. And there are things you can do to minimize the effects of cold. We're going to talk about that here today. And I also have Darren Palmer, Ford's VP of Electric Vehicle Programs. He's going to come on and we're going to have a little chat about some of the things he thinks you can do to better prepare yourself for the winter. I also have an F-150 Lightning customer that lives in Alaska. And he's been driving pickup trucks his whole life. And he said something really surprising about the Lightning that you're not going to want to miss. But first, please don't forget, if it's your first time here at State of Charge, click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any electric vehicle news and reviews here at State of Charge.
This video is powered by Qmerit, North America's leading provider of installation services for electric vehicle charging, home energy storage, and other electrification technologies. See how Qmerit is making the energy transition easy for home and business owners by following the link in the description of this video.
All right, so before we jump into the video, I just want to have a quick word about some of the things I said earlier about other content creators. There are plenty of fantastic journalists and YouTubers out there that really do a good job talking about EVs and combustion vehicles and explaining how they work and so forth. But there's definitely some out there that like to sensationalize things. And, you know, they take artistic liberty, I think, to align with the narrative that they want the video to have. You know, truth be damned. So just pay attention to who you follow out there and get opinions from a bunch of people before you form your own. So in any event, let's talk about cold weather and the effects on electric vehicles, and particularly the Lightning. So yeah, cold weather does hurt the range of electric vehicles. I mean, the battery, it can't use the energy as efficiently as it does when it's warmer. And then you have the heater use. Electric vehicles don't get waste heat from their engine. That's how combustion engines heat the cabin, and that's why you have to wait a while for the car to warm up before you get heat. With electric vehicles, as soon as you hop in it, you turn the heat on, heat starts blowing out. Most people will use their app and turn on the heat before they even get in the vehicle, but that uses even more energy. But that's the difference. So it uses energy just to heat the cabin and the battery. And in the winter, the air is more dense. So there's more wind resistance when you're driving down the highway, particularly at highway speeds. You're driving on snow, ice, slush, road salt, sand, whatever they put on the roads to help people get better traction. That increases rolling resistance. So all of this conspires to make your vehicle less efficient. I mean, it happens with combustion vehicles too. They're less efficient when it's cold also, but you don't notice it as much because they typically have longer ranges. And when you're out on the road, they can refuel faster. So it's not as big of a problem. But as I said earlier, even though EVs have less range, if you prepare properly, you can really overcome it. Now, it's not going to be for everyone. And I always say use the right tool for the right job. Electric vehicles really have only been around for about a decade now, and they're getting better every year. They go further, they charge faster, but they're still not for everyone. You might be somebody that, for your specific use case, a combustion vehicle is better. If you need to tow 7,000 or 8,000 pounds, many hundreds of miles frequently, you know what? As big of an EV supporter as I am, the Lightning might not be the best truck for you. You might want to get a diesel or gasoline F-150 or a pickup truck from another brand. So, there's still things that EVs have to catch up with, but to be honest with you, they do most things extremely well. And if you prepare properly, you'll be just fine through the winter months. So what I want to do first is Ford recently put out their tips. They offered 8 tips for Lightning owners on how to prepare for winter. So let's take a look at Ford's recommendations first. Number 1 on Ford's list is an easy one. Park your Ford F-150 Lightning in a garage whenever possible. Pretty simple and easy to understand advice. In most cases, garages are a little bit warmer. I know my garage here is attached to my house. It's usually 20 to 30 degrees warmer than it is outside. And that means the battery's a little bit warmer to start off with, and you're ahead of the game rather than cold soaking it overnight outside. Now, a lot of people can't do that. That's why they added whenever possible. Okay, number 2, keep your F-150 Lightning plugged in when parked. Another pretty simple one. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, it's going to keep charging, and it's going to make sure the vehicle is always fully charged and ready when you need it. Number 3, if planning a longer commute, precondition your vehicle using departure times to warm the battery while plugged in by using the Ford Pass app or your truck's center screen. Preconditioning is really important, and it's great with EVs. What that does is, while the vehicle is plugged in, it will warm up your battery and the cabin depending on when your departure time is set. So let's say you have it set for 8 o'clock in the morning. What's going to happen is maybe 7 o'clock or 7:30 at some point shortly before you leave, the vehicle is going to wake itself up and it's going to warm the cabin and the battery while it's plugged in. That way it'll be using the energy from your electric service, not the battery. And what that means is you'll leave warmed up with 100% charge. Now, number 4, if equipped, use the heated seats and steering wheel as primary heat to reduce energy consumed by HVAC. Now, this is one of the things that one of the other YouTubers that I was referring to earlier kind of mocked Ford about. And he said that, well, Ford's telling their customers they can't use the heat. This is crazy. It's the winter. That's not what they're saying here. They're saying using it as primary heat. What I do with my EVs, and it works so well, is yes, I have the heated seats on and this heated steering wheel, and they really do a great job warming your body up. But I also have the cabin heat on. The thing is, you don't need to have the cabin heat on as high and blowing as strongly if your seat's warm and your steering wheel's warm. So they're there just to complement the cabin heat, not replace it. You don't have to shut off your cabin heat. You just maybe turn it down a little bit more, and it saves a little bit of energy, adds back a couple of those miles you lost to the cold temperatures. Okay, number 5, when charging, turn off the heater if possible, or lower the temperature enough to remain comfortable. And then they say here, especially when using DC fast charge. I really think that that's almost exclusively when using DC fast charge. And the reason, what they're saying is, while your vehicle is charging, if you're sitting in it and waiting, which doesn't happen all that often unless you're on a road trip, some of the energy that you're getting from the charging station is going to be used by the heater if you're in the truck heating it up. So the truck's going to take a little bit longer to charge because you're taking some of that energy. This to me is kind of something that isn't too important, and I would not stress about this. Unless you're in a total rush and you have to get to where you're going as fast as possible, leave that heat on and keep yourself warm while you're charging. It's not going to add much time to your charging, trust me. Okay, number 6. If your F-150 Lightning is covered with snow, brush off all the snow before driving to eliminate extra weight and drag. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this number 6. I'm going to take out if your F-150 Lightning. I'm going to say if any car you're driving is covered in snow, brush all of it off before driving. In many states, it's illegal to drive if you've got snow packed on your roof or your windshield or whatever. I mean, you can't even see if you don't remove it from the front of your vehicle. It's a safety hazard. It can blow off if you're on the highway. If it's ice, it could break the windshield of the vehicle behind you. So this is kind of a fugazi recommendation, in my opinion. That's 6 there. That should regard anyone should follow those directions. Don't drive if there's snow and ice on your vehicle. Okay, number 7, keep driving speeds moderate in cold temperature as high speeds use more energy. This is a big one, especially in cold weather. I mentioned earlier, the air is more dense, so there's more resistance. And, speed always reduces range. If you're driving on the highway, if you just slow down an extra 5 or 10 miles an hour, you'd be amazed at how much further you can go. Now, you want to maintain a safe highway speed, but if you're not in a rush to where you're going, knock it down 5 or 10 miles an hour, and you'll see your range increase dramatically. And as I said, it gets even worse when it's cold. So that's a huge one. That's probably the best way to extend your range in warm or cold weather is simply to just slow down a little bit. Number 8, ensure your tires are at the proper pressure. This is a big one also. As we know, dense air, contracts, the tire pressure goes down. A lot of people get their tire warning lights when the first cold spell of the winter. Keep an eye on your tire pressure. Make sure it is at the proper pressure. I know some people that own EVs that even make it a little bit higher than the recommended tire pressure because it does increase your range. I'm not recommending you do that. I recommend that you put it at the proper tire pressure, but just keep an eye on it because throughout the winter, it's going to reduce. And I'm telling you, just dropping it a couple pounds per square inch lower than what it's supposed to be set at is going to knock range off your vehicle. So that's an important one. Next up, I have Ford's Global VP of Electric Vehicles, Darren Palmer, on to talk a little bit about the F-150 Lightning and cold weather driving. But before we do, there's one of the things I want to talk about that we just mentioned in that list, and that's preconditioning. I have a lot of my followers reach out to me and ask me about battery preconditioning. Tom, do you do it every day? Is it needed every day? And my stance on that is no, it's not. And I don't precondition my battery every day. As a matter of fact, I rarely precondition the battery, and that's because I'm not pushing the edge limits of my vehicle's driving range. When I'm doing that, when I'm going on a long trip, for instance, my in-laws live up in Vermont, and it's about 225 miles away. So during the winter months, whatever EV that I drive, I set the preconditioning, and before we leave, I'm at 100% charged, the battery, the cabin's nice and warm, and that helps to extend my range. But for daily driving, I don't precondition. And you really don't need to unless you think that you're going to be pushing the limits of the vehicle's range. And one of the reasons why I don't is it does use extra energy. While you're preconditioning, you're pulling more electricity from the wall. And if you don't need to warm the battery up to extend your range every day, it's really not necessary to do so. What I do is cabin pre-warming all the time in the winter. I'm always hitting that button and getting my cabin nice and warm for me, but I don't set the preconditioning every day. I really only do it unless I need to squeeze out every mile possible. Now, every automaker has a different way of enabling and setting the preconditioning features on their EVs. So let's take a look at how you set preconditioning on Ford's electric vehicles.
For much of America, it is cold and getting colder. And no matter what type of electric vehicle you drive, cold temperatures can limit battery power. And power is exactly what you need in order to keep your cabin cozy and your windows defrosted in the winter months. Preconditioning your Ford EV preheats your high voltage battery to an optimal temperature, using the charger for power and saving your battery power for where you need it most on the road, maximizing your overall range. The first step to preconditioning your vehicle is setting the departure time. This can be done either using the Ford Pass app or the sync screen in your vehicle. If you're already in the driver's seat, select the home button on the sync screen. Then select charging. Next, press the departure and comfort button. Now go ahead and adjust the days of the week, the time, as well as the ideal cabin temperature to your schedule and your preferences. Finally, remember to save your settings. You can also do this with the Ford Pass app. Just open the app, find the Vehicle tab at the bottom of the screen, and tap on Departure Time. Then select Add Departure, and from there, you can adjust the time, days of the week, and cabin temperature to your schedule and preferences. Now it's time to set your preferred charge level, which tells your vehicle how much you'd like to charge when it's plugged in. To set your charge level using the Ford Pass app, open it up and go back to the Vehicle tab located at the bottom of the screen. Then choose Charging, followed by selecting the Charge Settings dropdown, and then choose Preferred Charge Times. Select the location you want to manage, and then using the sliding bar, adjust the charge level. If you so choose, you can also change your charge times from the screen as well. And once again, don't forget to save your settings. Once your charge times are set, go ahead and plug in your vehicle. Now, with your Ford Pass app, you'll get an alert letting you know when your vehicle has reached its preset temperature, allowing you to drive off comfortably and without having used any unnecessary battery power. And that's how you precondition your Ford electric vehicle. Stay warm out there.
All right, so now let's check in with Darren Palmer and see what he has to say.
Okay, so I'm here today with Darren Palmer, Ford's VP of Global Electric Vehicle Programs. We're going to talk F-150 Lightning in the winter, driving it in cold weather. And so Darren, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. This isn't your first time here on State of Charge. Thanks for being a repeat guest.
Great to see you all again. You know, I follow everything you do, so it's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about F-150 Lightning in cold weather. And I know Ford recently put out their cold weather driving tips for Lightning owners, so I thought it would be a good time to maybe reach out to you and get some of your thoughts on this subject. One of the things I'm interested in is obviously when electric vehicles driving in cold weather, they need different engineering dynamics than ICE vehicles do. Could you talk a little bit maybe about what are the challenges on engineering an EV to survive cold winters?
Absolutely. Now, F-150 is a very versatile product made for customers all over the country. And they, of course, endure huge variations in conditions. So this truck had to be built for tough. And the number one, the just given, was that it had to be ready for absolutely anything. So it's been tested with the most extreme that you can imagine, both real physically and also in our labs. So way down to 40 degrees and in snow and ice and packed snow and rock and ravines and rivers and everything. So we put it through our entire F-150 suite, whether or not we think it matters for EVs. We just did it anyway, just like we did with towing. We did it on every possible, whether or not we think that would be an extreme for an electric or a gas. And it turns out during that testing, and we mentioned this when we were talking about towing and high-speed towing and then towing in traffic as well, there are some conditions that are not that challenging for for gas, but are very challenging for EVs, just because of the cooling and how things work. So we just put it through the whole test anyway, because then we may find things that we didn't expect. So part of this is, can it do it? And of course, you use durability testing to make sure it can do it. So it can do it. The other part is, what does it do to your range and everyday usability for customers? These things are really, really important. And some of this is just education of customers on how EVs work. And I know you guys are really at the forefront of that. That's a huge subject. And we knew coming into winter, that's when we get lots of questions from customers. Some of them have bought these products and have just used them exactly like gas and haven't moved over, haven't learned about it. And all of a sudden they get a surprise. And then now they're interested and they want to know about how it works and what is preheating. And I didn't even know there was preheating, and I never said it, and all of those things, and then how's charging affected, and even can I charge in the rain, and what happens at cold? So all of those. So those things are what we had to go and find and then try to get in front of how to educate customers. Nobody will read the manual anymore. and they barely read a notification that pops up. And so we're using every trick to show them, but trying to do it when they need it. And that's what we're working on. We'll talk more about that later, but some of the challenges that you mentioned. So, for example, when a battery gets cold, it has less space in it to store its power. So the same battery, when very cold, will actually have less range. At the same time, usually when it's really cold, that's when people want more heat. And that's when they jump in the vehicle and maybe turn it to maximum. And so they may or may not be aware that both the battery's down and they will use more heat. And therefore, it's a double heat. And our policy has been, we want to make sure they're never surprised or never let down, because we know a lot of the customers are going to be really new to the product. And if we overestimate the range, then it could put them in a position where they have less than they expected and they have a surprise. And so we have been on the side of caution there to make sure they don't get into that. Because we also know in a truck, you may also tow. And the last thing you want to do is get into a towing situation, be halfway down the road, and it's using more than it said it would, and then you get in trouble. So our vehicle also detects when you hook a trailer to it, and it adjusts all of its range for that as well. But all of that just amounts to us trying to help the customer understand what they've really got. And I'll say, really, we're a little bit too conservative in some ways. And so we'll talk about it. But some of the things we've been doing is, as we've learned more about real use, we have been adjusting our estimates up a little bit. And there's a cloud-based system on the truck that is learning from real-life customer experience, and then we can make real-time adjustments to people's trucks for when we learn what really happens and what's happening that week and what's happening in that particular hill and that area. We can adjust their ranges so that we can give them the most security that they can. But they're some of the first things that we had to deal with.
So I noticed in your advice to maximize your range in cold weather, you talked about preconditioning the vehicle, which is, that always helps EV range. When you plug in, set a schedule, you're going to leave at 8 a.m., have the vehicle warmed up and ready to go. But one of the other things I noticed that you said was always keep the vehicle plugged in when you're not using it. You talk a little bit about why that might be important?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for not everybody can do it, but a lot of our buyers can. We can see that data, and a lot of them can. So if you keep it plugged in, the vehicle will do the work for you. It tries to be ready for you. So if you keep it plugged in, it will keep the battery at a range that it's ready for work. So it'll keep it above 0 degrees C, and it's ready for work, most people. So even if you just go and grab the vehicle at any point, drive off, it's going to have a reasonable range, and it'll be ready for its fast charging. And so that's why we say plug it in. Also, if you're using a vehicle in a pro way, pros will leave it plugged in. They'll set a departure time, and actually it doesn't matter the departure time, because it will prepare the vehicle and the battery, and it loses about 1 degree an hour. So even if you don't know what time you're going to leave, and a lot of people's lives are like that now. Even if you don't know, it doesn't matter. We set it for 6:30 a.m. when electricity's still cheap, and get it to prepare. It will prepare the vehicle, cabin, and the battery, and it will stay the right temperature for hours and hours. Even if you don't leave till 10 or 11, it doesn't matter. And if you get in then, and then you have you conserve energy a little bit, the vehicle learns you, and you will maintain a very healthy range all through the winter, no matter how cold it is outside. And that's what we're explaining to people. I don't think we've explained well enough that it prepares the battery, and we're preparing to tell them a little bit more about that, because people want to know why. Just telling them to plug it in is not enough, it seems. You've got to tell them why. And so we have been telling them to plug it in on the display, but it seems a lot of them can ignore that still and say, hey, I don't know why. So that's education. That's what we're going to try all different methods to help educate customers.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be obvious, well, keep it plugged in because you're going to recharge it and it'll always be topped off. But then the other side of the coin is, in addition to being fully charged, it's going to automatically keep the battery at a temperature as to help expand the range. So that's something that you really haven't communicated. And, I'm glad that we're bringing that out now. I'll make sure that my followers are aware of that.
Yeah,
Now,
especially setting up the time before you leave in the morning. They might not realize. Just set it for some random time in the morning. Usually, even better when the electricity is still at low rate, and it will prepare the battery. They probably didn't know that, and so they tend to say to me. I speak to customers every week. They say, "Well, I don't know what time I'm going to leave," and then I say, "I got you. Just set it for 6:30 then," and they didn't know that, and then they write back to me afterwards and say, it made a huge difference. Like, okay, so good, that's education. We're learning. We'll get the word out.
and another thing about education, I find it interesting. I've been driving EVs for a long time, and most EVs don't even give you any information on where your energy went to. But some of them do. They'll break it up and they'll say, 88% went to propulsion and 12% went to, auxiliary use. But the Lightning, and I believe the Mach-E also, actually breaks it up even more. They split up the climate use, the energy used for climate use, and then there's a separate line for exterior temperature, which the way I took this is that you're trying to help educate people that, look, here's your battery. This chunk of it went to dry propulsion. This was for your heater and your radio and all that stuff. And then over here, this is the energy that you lost because it was too cold or too hot, and so the battery wasn't operating at its maximum capacity. Is that the reason why you did that?
Oh yeah. So we knew early on people are going to say, "Where's all my power gone?" And why, and it's not super simple. So we added that feature, and it's under energy usage on the app drawer. And then I'm obsessed with it. I gamify it every day. So my best. I talk to customers about it every time I call them, and some of them haven't seen it or don't use it. And so, for example, if I preheat the car, and then I get in, it's toasty warm. I set the temperature 3 degrees lower than like 68 F. I drive off and it's already warm. The car actually automatically closes the recirc vent to stop cold air coming in. It's got with smart heating, I think we call it. And then it will maintain. And by the time I got to work, I didn't change the temperature. And I looked at that bar, and I used about 4% on heat. And then and on the right, because I preheated and because the battery is warm, I have hardly any effect for cold weather, because a lot of that cold weather effect is the battery temperature. And because mine's optimum, I hardly get any on the right, I hardly get any on the left, and I'll achieve probably very, very close to the 300 miles EPA of the vehicle, even on a cold day. And I've also tried every other. If I just forget it, leave it soaked all night, let it get down really cold, use maximum heat and drive off. When I look, I can use up to 15, 20% heat. And I'll also see on the right-hand side the cold temperature coming in because the battery's cold. And you'll see how that has reduced, on a given ride, how much of it have you used up because you heated too much and because of the cold battery. That's what it's for. And I can't give too much away, I'll get in trouble, but people love that function. So we're going to expand it further and give you even more information soon.
They're very good. I'm a big proponent of giving people more information. If some customers don't want to view it, that's fine. But put it in there in the settings somewhere and let the people that want to view it, view it. Another thing I love about the preconditioning feature on my Lightning, and I own an F-150 Lightning as well as is when I turn on when I pre-warm it through the app, which I'll do if I'm at a restaurant, 10, 15 minutes before I'm going to leave, I turn it on. It automatically turns on my heated seats and my heated steering wheel. I also have a Rivian R1T. I'm pretty sure you know that. But when I turn on the preconditioning, it just turns on the cabin air. It doesn't turn on my seats and my steering wheel, which I've driven through 13 winters now with EVs. This is going to be my first winter with my Lightning. But so I'm a pro at this cold weather driving stuff. I'm a big fan of using the heated seats and the heated steering wheels over the cabin heat because they don't use that much energy. So and that's one of the things on your list on how to maximize your range that you put out was, use the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. So I love the fact that when I press that, pre-warm the truck for me, I get out, the seat's warm, the steering wheel's warm, and then when I get in the truck, I turn the heat off because I don't need it. The air's already warm, and now my seat, my steering wheel's warm. So good job on that.
Did you notice that you don't have to set hot cabin either. You can set the cabin less when you do the preheat as well. So that if you, for example, in your case, you say, I want to heat the cabin even less, just get it off of cold. You can set that as well, so you use even less energy.
Okay, well, I'm going to play around with that. I've just been using it at the setting that I've had. So, it's been a love fest so far, and I'm talking about how much I love my Lightning and everything, but now I have to ask you the hard question. Why didn't Ford include a heat pump in the Lightning? Because the heat pump systems tend to make EVs more efficient in the winter and extend their range. So please tell us why that wasn't included.
Yeah, so we looked at the system. We know all about heat pump systems and what they can do, and we looked at a performance trade-off versus cost for the customer and what it gave, and we gave a lot on the Lightning. I think it's one of the best value EV products on the market, I believe, and so we took a value decision for it. And we also found they're good in some circumstances and they're not so good in other circumstances. So they're not universally better. They give a bit more at one end than the other. There's also other technology, I won't go into now, but a type of heat pump technology that's much more efficient. And we decided we want to put our money into the much more efficient system. So we had to take a choice there. So that's why. But as you say, with a little bit of this preparation, you can get a very efficient use out of the truck. For what it is, for the size of the truck, it's really efficient. Against its competition and everything out in the market, it's very competitive. And its range in real world gives a good range versus the EPA, because we're a little bit conservative on it. So we want the real world to be close to what the customer bought. So, people have been very pleased with that. As I say, I think our estimation can be a bit less conservative. We're working on that. I think we take the range down a little bit too much, but we're on the safe side at the moment. But a pro using it can definitely get more out of it.
Yeah, I've been driving around town over 300 miles. Pure highway, it's a little bit less, obviously. That happens with all EVs. But I've been very happy with my range so far, and I can easily meet the EPA range rating. Now, it hasn't got really cold here in New Jersey yet. That's coming. So we're going to be able to do some good cold weather testing coming up soon. And I'm actually going to speak to one of your Alaskan customers next and about their experience driving the Lightning up in Alaska. So, I appreciate your time here, Darren. Thank you very much for coming on State of Charge. Again, I do appreciate that you come on here to talk to the State of Charge community and give us the inside scoop on Ford electrification projects.
Thank you. And we're listening every day. I have always on teams, they're called now, on the Lightning and on the Mach-E and soon to be the e-Transit. And we're listening and watching every day what's happening and helping customers. If we see people with problems, we try to treat them like family. We can't be perfect, but we can try and treat them perfectly. So that's what we're trying to do. We learn every day. That's it. And we'll keep learning and we'll keep improving as we go. And software, we're really getting into our stride now on software. We committed to continuously update these vehicles with cool stuff, and we're going to do it. So you're just going to start seeing it coming through now. We did deliver Blue Cruise hands-free with over the air, which was a major update, but we got some more coming, which I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but will come to our customers. And I mean all of them. Everybody who bought a Mach-E and Lightning from the start, they're all going to get it. So I'm really pleased about that, and great to see you again.
Thank you. And before we leave, talking about the software updates, just today I received my software update so that I can use my phone as a key for the Lightning, which I was really waiting for. And I haven't actually paired it yet because I've been busy with the electricians here today. We're doing our upgrade here at the house now for Ford Intelligent Backup Power System. I'm doing my full install this week. So there's going to be content coming out on that very soon. Darren, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
It's good. I want to hear when you get the next software updates. We're cooking up some good stuff. So I want to hear from what you think of those as well. Thank you.
Can't wait.
Well, that was interesting. Sounds like Darren and his team have been working on some updates that Lightning owners may be seeing soon. Next up, we're going to talk to Jeff Head of Anchorage, Alaska. Jeff and his wife Tammy took delivery of their Lightning over the summer, right around the time that I did. Now, Jeff has a unique perspective because he lives up in Alaska and it's already been very cold up there. They've already had a lot of snow. So we're going to talk to Jeff about his experience with his Lightning driving around up in Anchorage, Alaska. All right, so we're here today with Jeff Head. Jeff is a Ford F-150 Lightning owner up in Alaska. Now, it gets cold in the winter here in New Jersey, but not Alaska cold. So I thought I'd talk to Jeff a little bit about his experience so far. So Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your Lightning and how cool it is up in Alaska?
Sure. So again, my name is Jeff Head. I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I've been in Alaska, almost 60 years. So a long time. Came up here with my family when we were in the military. Got my Lightning in July. Have thoroughly enjoyed the truck on all levels. Obviously, I got it during the summer months when the days are quite long. Now, the flip side of that is true. Days are much shorter. Temperatures are much colder. As a matter of fact, yesterday we are in the throes of a cold snap, and yesterday, I believe when I drove in, it was 8 below zero. So getting to experience the truck during the winter months. And as I said previously, I've thoroughly enjoyed the truck in the time that I've owned it.
Okay. So, there's interesting things. I've driven EVs through many winters here. I've been driving electric vehicles for 13 years now. So, we get decent winters here in New Jersey. Again, nothing like, 8 below. It might get below zero a couple of times, but just barely 1 or 2 degrees below zero. But it's cold, then we get ice. Have you noticed like some EVs struggle a little bit when they're on ice because the regenerative braking, how the vehicle slows you down when you lift off the accelerator. Sometimes the regen struggles with the anti-lock braking system and you might get a little skidding. How's the Lightning been on really slippery surfaces?
Well, let me answer that question in two parts. First of all, I did the regenerative braking and the one pedal driving in the summer. I honestly have not used it in the winter. All right. I was during the summer months when I did use it, I was apprehensive in how it would work. I found that I was able to adapt to it quite easily. I will admit that this is my first EV, so I've been burning gas since I was at 16. And so now that you mentioned that, I want to give it a try. In these road conditions. But the second part of the answer to that question is that I have been a Ford truck owner, an F-150 owner for, probably 15 years-ish. The truck I had prior to this was a 2015 F-150 Platinum. I actually still have that truck, but I find that my F-150 Lightning is a substantially more sure-footed vehicle in inclement road conditions. It gets around well in the ice and snow, much more so than my previous F-150 Platinum does. And I don't know what to attribute that to. I know that the truck is, on balance, is heavier. I'm not sure if that helps. But I will tell you that the all-wheel drive system that the Lightning has is superior to the auto all-wheel drive system that is on my gas-powered F-150 substantially. So I feel much more comfortable driving on slippery roads and in snow in the new F-150 Lightning.
Interesting. And are you running with the stock tires, the all-season tires, or did you put specific?
I put an all-season. I put a Blizex. I would imagine you're familiar with that brand.
Yeah,
it's a
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone Blizex. It's a winter non-studded winter tire. And again, I have not had, and other than glare ice, my experience with those as a tire choice has been they've worked well, and so I'm experiencing the same thing with this.
How about your range? Now we know all EVs lose range when it's really cold.
Right.
Would you be able to ballpark how much range you think you're getting less?
I would say probably about between 10 and 15%. Probably. Now I do. There is a means to check the power usage. What percent of the power usage is going to the various services, driving, climate, that sort of
Temperature, yeah.
thing. And I've paid more attention to that as the weather has changed, and it doesn't appear to me that the outside temp is seriously changed the usage from that perspective.
How about deep snow? Have you driven it in deep snow recently yet, or?
I've driven in probably 10 inches of snow, and again, I would say I have had a handful of all-wheel drive vehicles, and there are some that just get around much better in that kind of weather than others. And I find this to be, in the top 5% of those vehicles with that function that I've experienced.
I mean, you're an experienced Ford truck driver. You live in Alaska. You should know how your different vehicles handle in the winter. I've always had pickup trucks, not Ford pickup trucks though. I've gone for the smaller ones. I had a lot of Toyota Tacomas in the past. And the interesting thing is, you would think that Toyota would build on like every model would be the same or better, but that isn't the case. Through the years, I've had certain ones that were much better in snow and ice, and then I get the next model, I'm like, oh, it's going to even be better than the last one, and it's terrible. And then, the next model I get 4 years later was back to being good. So, it's not every four-wheel drive vehicle doesn't act the same way. Some of them do outperform others, and it's interesting that you, as a Ford truck owner, are saying that the Lightning seems to outperform the other Ford trucks that you've owned in snow and inclement weather. That's interesting. And I haven't had a chance to drive in snow here in New Jersey yet. It's just starting to get cold here. We really get snow in January and February, but I'm looking forward to trying it out. Do you have any extra parting tips for F-150 Lightning owners for the winter that you want to share?
Well, for those people that have been reluctant, I would say, and I'll fall into that category, reluctant to adopt the EV because of apprehension around the amount of distance that they can get. I think those are misplaced worries. And as the infrastructure that supports EVs is more robust, I think they as an option will just be much more widely adopted. And I think I'm glad to be in front of that wave as opposed to in the middle of it. So I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Well, those wise words. I've been telling people that for quite some time now, but you have to experience it. It's easy to tell somebody, oh, go get an EV. You're not going to have range anxiety. It's going to be able to get you to where you need to go. But everybody has to do it when they're ready. But it's good when you have a friend or somebody that you trust, because people, they're not trusting the commercials. Ford saying, oh, drive our F-150 Lightning, it's great. You know what they trust? They trust you. They trust me. People that are owners that say, hey, look, we're just everyday people here. We've got these electric pickup trucks and they're awesome. And you should consider it. So listen, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate this. I'm sure the F-150 Lightning community is going to be very happy to hear your words and talking about how well the truck performs in the winter.
Glad I could help.
All right, I'd like to thank Jeff again for coming on State of Charge and sharing his Lightning experience. Found it really interesting when he said that he thought the Lightning's all-wheel drive system is superior to the all-wheel drive system on his conventionally fueled Ford pickup truck. Really interesting there. I'm going to be able to test that out myself soon. We're scheduled to have some snow in a couple of weeks, so I should be able to do some first-hand reporting on that soon. All right, so let's do a quick recap as far as winter driving with your F-150 Lightning, trying to extend your range, making sure you're getting the most out of the battery. There's some just basic things that you can do that can really dramatically improve your winter driving range. Plug the vehicle in. Even if you're at 70, 80% state of charge, if you're near a charger, just plug it in. That'll top off the battery. And also, if the vehicle decides that the or if the vehicle determines that the battery is getting too cold, it'll start warming it up and have it ready for that next drive. And even keeping it at a warmer level prepares it if you do need to DC fast charge once you get out on the road. If you're going on a long trip, it's better to have that battery warmer because it'll be able to take in more power. Use the preconditioning feature. If you think that you're going to be driving very far, as I said, for daily use, you probably don't need that. But if you think you're going to be kind of stretching the range, make sure you schedule preconditioning. Your vehicle will be nice and toasty warm. The battery will be warm and ready to go as far as you need it to. Make sure your tire pressure is set properly. That's really important in the winter months. You could easily knock 10, 15 miles of range off your driving range if your tire pressure is just a couple pounds low. Use the heated steering wheel and heated seats if you have them on your Lightning. I'm not saying shut off the cabin heat, but you can definitely use less cabin heat, which was going to use less energy, just by keeping your seat and your steering wheel nice and warm. Your body's going to feel nice and warm. The big one here is slow down. You don't need to get somewhere that extra 2 minutes earlier. So take it easy. It's safer, especially with ice and snow on the roads. You can have black ice on the highways and you don't even see it. Knock your speed down just a couple miles an hour and it's really going to make a difference with your range. That's, EV 101, speed kills. And we used to say you can go fast or you can go far, but you can't go both. And it's true, especially in the winter. If you really need to get every mile out of your Lightning's battery, just knock that speed down a little bit and you'll make it there no problem. Now, one of the things we haven't talked about here today that I think's really good feature on the Lightning, and it will help you increase your range, is use that brake coach. Ford has the regenerative braking brake coach, and it tells you what percentage of your braking was done with regen versus using the friction brakes. Use that to coach you to improve how you use regenerative braking. You want that to be 100% every time. And if that's the case, you're recovering as much energy as you possibly can, and that can add another 5 or 10 miles per charge to your driving range if you use your regenerative braking properly, even more. But I'm assuming your baseline is going to be lower than 100%. If you can improve from 80% all the time up to 100% all the time when you use that regenerative braking brake coach, you're going to add some miles to your driving range. Well, that's all we have here today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. If this is your first time here at State of Charge, please click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming EV news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.